Hey guys, Selwyn Robbins here, host of Mandated Podcast Show. Always a pleasure to be back with you. I'm excited once again, and even more importantly, because of the guests that I have. And on top of that, the topic that we're going to get to as men. As you know, we've been speaking about a certain thing that's going on, and hopefully that topic in itself is not something that's just going to be seasonal or trendy, but it's going to be long term. So we can deal with it and really get into the heart of it as men. But before I go any further, I want to welcome this gentleman that you see and will hear here in just a second. Met him actually a couple of years ago through my wife. She used to attend their church, which is Kingdom Ekklesia, correct?
Yes, sir.
It is Kingdom Ekklesia. And it's awesome, powerful word that this man speaks, definitely from the heart of God, and with the anointing on it. It is very powerful, very impactful. He's very strong in his word, and even in that, strong as a father and husband and businessman. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the voice of Pastor Jason Johnson.
Thank you
What's
so
going
much.
on, guy?
Hey, sir, man. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well. You know, got this big
Thank,
smile,
thank you for having me, man. I'm honored. I'm humbled to be a part of this dynamic conversation in this forum that you have, and I thank God for what you're doing, your leadership in the kingdom and in the African American community. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, you're welcome. Thank you for that, man. Yeah, you know, the whole thing about mandated is understanding what we're mandated to do, and that's the authority that we've been given, but more so, how do we express that authority without running over people for short?
Right.
um,
Exactly.
you know, and
Exactly.
it's a strong word, and I love it. In that, just as men, we always tend to want something strong to stand behind. But at the
Hmm.
same time, what's the subtlety to it? What's the tenderness to it that as men, we don't typically express? And, you know, in the show, we get to do that for
That's
sure,
right.
man. So I want to do that. I want to do that. So as we begin here, you know, as we were talking before we began, I like talking about family.
Yeah.
First and foremost, before anything else, because it is so important to us
Absolutely.
as men. And we always want to get a chance to um, just display what the family dynamic is to us. So tell me about your family a little bit, Pastor.
Absolutely. So I have been married to a beautiful, dynamic, phenomenal woman of God, Kay Johnson, for 14 years. We met in college about 17 years ago. And she has afforded me the honor and privilege of being able to help me raise four beautiful children, Jekiah, Jeremiah, Javiana, and Levi. And I have in that order. I have four children. I know I only look 25, but
Yeah, you
brother
do, man.
no, but and my oldest actually just had a birthday on yesterday. She turned 17.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so that was big. Father's Day, birthday. I'm trying to get my day in. She's trying to get her day in. So we fighting for the role. No, but it was good. And family for me is everything, man.
Mhm.
That's the reason I'm here today. That's why you see me sitting before you with a sane mind, even though sometimes family does drive you insane.
Uh-oh.
They are the things that pushes you to stay sane. Come on here, it's the balance, right? But having that for me that broad picture of the dynamics of personalities in my house, that for
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
is one of the most rewarding and challenging aspects of a family, because everybody has their own personality from the top to the bottom, and you know that. So my family comprised of two girls, two boys. So you know, with me and my
Mhm.
boys and my wife and the girls, it's three
Yeah.
on three.
Yeah.
So you
Uh-oh.
know, so how that goes. So it's good. It's fun, but it's definitely rewarding.
Okay, so with from the oldest to the youngest, tell us about their characteristics. What have you seen in these years with them?
Yeah, so no, my 17-year-old, my daughter, um, she's analytical, but
Hmm.
she's strategic, right? She's more so, I'll do it with a plan, but don't ask me to do something purposeless, because if it doesn't require energy, I won't put forth effort. She's that person, right? You have to tell her and show her why this is important to do. This is why we have to do this, and why you need to do this. If not, then she's very inclined to figure out a way to prove to you that she doesn't need to put her energy towards it.
Oh, she's
So
like,
that's
I'm
just
out.
yeah, I'm out, right? I'm not finna run outside for no reason. Like, what's the purpose of being outside in the hot sun if it's not drawing forth some type of production? My 14-year-old son, he's an athlete, so his energy is, I mean, all over the place. He's nonstop, right? He has this fireball mentality. He's going through everything. He's running everywhere. He's a baseball player, so he's well-rounded. But he's also analytical. But he's analytical to the point to where it has to make sense in a realm of him winning. Like the analytics of how do I accomplish a win? How do I get a win from it? That's how he's driven, right? My 12-year-old, my daughter, she's dramatic. Now, I don't know how and where. Her mom has this bone of laughter, that she laughs at everything. But my daughter, oh God, everything is a movie, a play, some type of scene. Like, she's in the world of her own every day. I don't know where she is sometimes. I have to remind her, hey, JV, I call my JV baby. We right here. We are here, baby. This is where we are. She's acting. And my youngest son, 9-year-old, I don't know. For me, he's more, his grandparents call him a deacon, because he's more so, like, he's more so serious and methodical, but he doesn't know he's serious. Like, he's funny because he's trying not to be funny. Like, that's just
that's real.
Yeah. And we call him the security of the studio. My wife has her own studio, Kingdom Images Dance. We call him the security because he's serious without being serious. I don't know, Levi's just Levi. So that's the dynamics of my family.
He's on guard all the time on that tower.
All the time.
Oh man. Okay, so let's talk about Kay and the Kingdom Dance Studio.
Yeah, so my wife, she's been dancing her entire life. She always had a vision of opening up her own studio, but like so many of us, faced the challenge of how do I accomplish that, trying to build a family, economically, time management, expenses, even being able to be supported from an external perspective from investors. And how do I get the support to open up this business? So to overcome that challenge for her was huge, which we celebrated a year this past September. We were open 1 year this past September, where she just took a leap of faith. We didn't have everything aligned in the budget. We didn't have all the nuances figured out. We didn't know how we was going to pay the rent. A year from now, we had some money saved up, but it wasn't to the longevity of 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. But there comes a point where you have to decide, if I'm gonna do what God has called me to do, I can't wait till everything becomes so structured and aligned before I jump out and take a leap of faith. I have to go for it. And that's what she did. She went for it. And I'm happy to support her. I'm happy to be her #1 cheerleader. I'm happy to be the maintenance guy, the administrative assistant, whatever she needs me to be. Right. Hopefully one day she can overtake my economic status, and I can retire early, and she can take on this workload. Hey man, come on, I'm gonna speak that thing into existence. But no, I'm very, very happy and joyful for my wife and all she's accomplished, and she loves it, and that's most important, man. Happy wife is a happy life. I don't care what you say. That's a truthful statement.
Oh, that definitely is true. And I do remember the ribbon cutting ceremony, and more recently, the extravaganza you had outside. I know that's not what it was called, but that was awesome, man. That really was.
Yeah, no, and it's a testament because she has so many diversity of race and color and age and gender and group. Like, it's so many different people who come to and graft and just dance and be filled with that joy, because dance does bring joy. Now, I tell her every now and again, if she gets tired, she can just tap me in. I got her. Like, I got her. If she ever get tired, I got her here. So, but she won't tap me. She ain't tapped me yet. So I'm waiting for the She ain't tapped me yet.
They tap you.
She ain't tapped me yet. But the spring concert was phenomenal. My mom takes a dance class. Some phenomenal women. She has an adult jazz class. She has ballet. She has tap. She has hip hop. I mean,
Wow.
all sort of dance and everything. It is just phenomenal how she brings it all together.
And man, dance is so rich in cultures. It
It
is,
is.
man,
It
if
is.
nothing else, it's normally food,
Yeah.
dance, and a religion or belief, man. But when it
That's right.
comes to dance,
Right.
I love seeing it, especially when I look at anything of African nation, man. It is so beautiful. When I hear the drums, it's like,
Yeah.
I just want to be there because it really engulfs you, and
Right.
it's such a great form of expression.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to be able to do that wherever, and I know it's just a beautiful thing, and I know she's going to continue doing that, going to all the different events and whatnot. But just in what you mentioned, that she's very versed in the different dance styles.
Mm-hmm.
And how many years has she been doing that, you said?
She's been dancing. She's been dancing since, I believe, and she's gonna probably correct me on this, I think 7 or 8 years old. She's been dancing. I know she went to a performance art school for high school in Detroit, Michigan. So she attended a performance art school. She really got serious about it. Her mom, my mother-in-law, I love my mother-in-law. She really stayed on her about it. My wife appreciates that now. And the fact that sometimes, especially when you're trying to push your children because of what you see in them, sometimes in the moment, it's hard for them to see the appreciation of the discipline that you provide, and some of the structure that you have to put in order. But as they say, hindsight is 2020. When you look back over it, they will appreciate the fact that you was more to them of a framework than a friend. And what I mean by that, you set a structure before you try to become compadres, right? And negotiate and compromise. This is how we do it. This is what we do. This is the framework we frame in. And within this framework, we can be friends. But if you step out of this framework, there's some boundaries that has to be set, and you're going to face some consequences. So saying that, man, not just helping my wife, to your point, culturally to dance, but as a woman, to express herself in a different way, to incorporate her belief and faith inside of this expression. Because music for us, come on, man, music for us is come on here, it's cultural, right? It takes on so many depths and meaning. It's just not a song we hear experience, we hear memory, we hear moment. Like we attach ourselves to that thing. So that's key, and that's huge for us in our family. Music is big.
Oh man, that's so awesome. That's awesome. Another thing that's key for you is business.
Yeah.
Your
Absolutely.
role.
Yeah, my role. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my role. My role. Yeah. That's important too. That's important too. It may not seem like it, but it is important. It's important. My role.
It is important, man. Yeah, you're managing a very important role with the company you're with, and I didn't know that until we actually met from the Love's Blueprint recording. And I was like, oh, so that's where you are. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to hear that from a business perspective. As a man, what are some of the things that you are seeing in our culture that we can do better?
Yeah.
And
so
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, my apologies.
And probably, some of the opportunities that we have that are there that we're not seeing.
Yeah. So I won't get into the name of the institution I work with, but I do work with a financial institution, one of the biggest ones in our country. And I've been there for over 10 years. And one of the things I see more than ever is financial literacy. The fact that we're not able to speak financial languages. We don't know the financial terminology. We don't know not just how to get in the room, but when we're in the room, what to hear for and what to look for and what to grab onto. So when these financial institutions do different topic conversations in the community, when they have different webinars to address different financial aspects of your community or economic status, either we're not attending because we're foreign to the language and it don't connect with us. We don't speak the language, right? And we gravitate to things that we relate to in our history versus things we relate to in our destiny. So it's so uncomfortable for us to go into a room that we don't speak a language. We quickly withdraw, right? We go back to communities that fit in with our culture and our insight and what we know already, versus trying to learn that new terminology, the unknown, right?
Yeah.
What I tell, in lessons I tell my children, be uncomfortable until uncomfortable becomes comfortable.
That's right.
That's why I tell them all to be uncomfortable until uncomfortable, because eventually the things that make you uncomfortable will eventually become comfortable if you stay there long enough to learn the nuances. And that's what we don't do in the financial world, especially in business, man. Managing a large part of this portfolio for this company that I manage, looking at not just how they view their consumers, but how they read them. And what I mean about it is, it's one thing to see who your clientele is. It's another thing to read into where they're going and what their kids are going to do and what their kids are projected to do, and reading into their financial future because of how they maintain this loan and how they built a relationship. And they're trying to not just get you one loan, but they're trying to open up several different accounts because they're trying to build a relationship so that it could be generational. And I cringe on one side, and I'm exposed to something different. And the reason I cringe is because that's what we lack, as a community, as a church, as a generation, as African American. We lack the process of thinking generationally and building something that can sustain us, and not just us, but sustain our children. I mean, and that's what they do.
And that's key right there. And that's one question I wanted to ask. Changing our perspective on the buying power. That, you would always hear in our culture, we're probably number one in what we buy in the sense of entertainment, those goods and whatnot. But now the buying power's focus is changing to now investing and building for the future. My wife and I are looking at that. People that I talk to, I'm trying to get just their insight on what they're focusing on. One of the things right now that's very big is stocks, specific to the Bitcoin arena. You don't necessarily need a lot of knowledge to get into that, really. I mean, you could just put some money to it and buy it and then research. But it's now showing that we're really interested in the longevity of things and where we can start planting seeds for our legacy, rather than, no, I could go purchase a car or a new clothing line or watch or phone. I can now purchase something that is going to show more value, not just now, but later down the line. That appreciation is going to be part of the process, but I can see how my investment is actually going much further than what I used to do.
Yeah. And anything you invest in, you become intimate with. And if you think about that, you have to be intimate whenever you have an investment, right? And learning, to your point, it doesn't take a lot, but here's the thing. You can invest in something that can produce or reproduce a harvest, and the harvest can be plentiful, but depending on not just what you invest, but when you invest, will determine how plentiful. And sometimes we're investing after we get comfortable with a product, or after we see the success, and oftentimes that's a little bit too late to invest into it. And I can use, if you know, I can use the Black church. Before we buy into a preacher or a pastor or a speaker or clergy, we wait for other people. We wait to see how far they've gone and how much they can produce and what they are, versus investing in them young when we first see some of the light, when we first see some of the flaws and the nuances, but still the try and the work hard and the fact that I'm pushing for something better. Let me invest in this young man or this young woman now, versus waiting till everybody else jumps on board and then I jump on board, because by the time I jump on board, I may have missed an opportunity to put something in that could have caused me some intimacy that nobody else had if I would have did it early enough.
Now I'm gonna use that as a segue into our conversation, our main topic for today. And we spoke about investing.
Yeah.
And one thing, as we invest, we always want to make sure we're investing in ourselves. Um,
Right.
it's especially as men, because there's so much that we're responsible for if we don't invest in ourselves, from a health perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from education, work, whatever it is, we're looking to build ourselves up. But in the investing, you have to notice and should notice the flaws, the ups and downs, things of that nature, which leads me into the conversation of masculinity. More specific, what's happening today, or what's being talked about today, toxic masculinity. See, that's a tongue twister right there.
Yeah.
But, the other day I was thinking about that particular topic as I've been talking about it. And I said, well, there needs to be some balance to it, because
Yeah.
if you keep hearing toxic, 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 it's going to continue
Right.
to be in that same way. So let's bring the healthy side to it. And my analogy for it is the umbrella of masculinity. And the makeup of it is, if you have an umbrella, you open it up, it's normally the ribs, as we mainly focus on the ribs that form the shape of the umbrella, right? You have the covering, you have the ribs, you have the pole, but then you have the support structures that you actually push up to open up the umbrella.
Right.
So each rib represents an area of masculinity, healthy or toxic. So with that, I want to come from this particular conversation. Um, Jan had mentioned the conversation you had with Jeremiah one time, and everybody was there, and the way you were talking to him in a fatherly way, it wasn't disciplining, but it was a teaching way, that everybody stopped and started listening to that conversation. Can we start from there and go into this masculinity? What was that about?
Yeah, so that conversation, and I won't get into too much of the
Yeah.
details. It was largely dealing with, and this is what I tell my son. Whenever I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to necessarily just the 10-year-old you or
Mhm.
the 11-year-old you. I'm also talking to the 21-year-old you
Mhm.
and the 22-year-old you. And the conversation was around some lack of discipline or responsibility that he should have carried out, that he didn't, that I wanted him to understand not just why it's important to do it then, but what it helps for you in the future. That responsibility today becomes reward for tomorrow. Like, if you don't learn how to have this accountability
Mhm.
and this discipline at an early age, you'll never, as a man, be able to obtain some of the rewards and the provisions that you can potentially obtain without having a level of discipline. So I was having this conversation, and without me even knowing, the room had stopped and everybody was listening. I was so engaged with him.
Mhm.
My son can sometimes be a little sensitive. I didn't know if, and this is the thing, I didn't know if my conversation was too harsh or if it was right on time,
Mhm.
but I operated by faith. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes going into, masculinity, as you're talking about the ribs of the umbrella and the
Mhm.
pushing up of the support system, sometimes we can overthink as fathers and as men our impact.
Mhm.
And we can become so silent and quiet because we may not know, not necessarily what to say, but how to say it. So
Mhm.
we revert back to not saying it at all.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how to convey this message, so
Mhm.
I would just not say anything. Or, I'm if I say this, I'm fear I may say it out of anger, or I fear that it may be misconstrued. So I'll just, kind of hone in and hoard up some of these emotions and things of my
Mhm.
nature. And one thing I really wanted to um, express to my son is the fact that the reason I'm talking to you so passionately
Mhm.
and I express it so with so much emotion is not because of what I feel, but it's because of what I see.
Mhm.
And I see so much greatness. And I see your
That's
potential, and
good.
I see who you can be. And
Mhm.
because of what I see is more important for me to release what I have on the side of me than to hoard it up just
Yeah.
because of I'm afraid to misconstrue or misinterpret or misconvey a word. No, I see too much,
Mhm.
and I know too much
Yeah.
And I've experienced too much. And having that conversation with him on that day, with all of those people in the room, I didn't even know at that point, not just Jan, but some of the other men were listening that helped influence how they began to speak and encounter with their sons. And that's what we have to do. We can't be afraid to have public conversations because we never know the private investment that it can convey.
Well, you spoke on kind of both topics on there. I saw from the healthy perspective, the passion, as you just mentioned, that you were conveying through your words to him. And I don't know what the number would be if we were to tally that up, but what kind of conversations did men of today have at that age with their fathers? And if they had them, how positively it impacted them for where they are today? Because the lack of that conversation, or no presence of that conversation, of course, we could attribute it to being toxic, in the sense of now that child or that young man is not being built up in the way they need to be for where they're going to be later. When we balance this, the good and the bad, the ups and downs of growing up in this man's world, to your childhood, looking back at that, what have you seen that were some items that built you up in a healthy way, and some things that went adverse to that?
Yeah. So that's a very important question, because to your point, sometimes we think just talking is enough. And while there is some relevance to saying things, there's also impact to what you're not saying. And what I mean by that is hearing the fact that I was a man and that I looked good, I was handsome, I had pretty eyes, and I didn't get this from my father. I'm just talking about hearing it in general. That plants a seed. But then hearing a conversation with my father to say that you shouldn't just have one woman, and there are more options out here. Like, when you combine those two perspectives without having identity, then what you hear is, because I look good, I can have multiple women.
You're right.
Because I have attributes, I don't have to settle for one, and I can go down and listen, down and listen. And some of that toxic, formulates inside of you because there is no structure around the conversation, and you're just saying things to be saying them without saying the necessary things that goes along with them. And a lot of the things I heard from my not just my father, because my father wasn't there for me growing up, but my brothers and my cousins, was the fact that there are more women out here than you can count. You ain't got to settle for one, and they got what you need, and no matter what you look like. And I heard a lot of those conversations. But I heard them at the tender age of me not knowing who I am. And when you don't know who you are, no future can be sustained without a foundation. When you don't have nothing to build on, right? Everything that you try to grasp for will always be torn down, will always break up, will always, eventually come into destruction, because there is no foundation. I didn't have a foundation of identity. I didn't have a foundation of, not just being a talent or attributes, but understanding that there is a broader purpose. So not giving myself away too soon. I didn't have a foundation, for positivity. I had a lot of fighting, because a lot of what I heard was about overcoming the necessary weaknesses of being a Black man in this country. You had to have more than one woman if you wanted to look like you was a player or successful. You had to, have a lot of money in your pocket. It doesn't matter how you got it. Now, listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying, in terms of legality. I'm saying you got to get there. It doesn't matter how you get there. If you want to be successful, you got to overcome the challenge of being broke. You got to overcome the challenge of being lonely. You got to overcome the challenge of being, a nerd, quote unquote, so to speak, right? So I'm hearing all of this. Now, how do you overcome it? Well, I wasn't given a foundation for identity. So now I overcome it by drugs, and I overcome it by whoring. I overcome it by bullying. I overcome it by, popularity. The things that I'm trying to figure out on my own that I wasn't given created some of those toxic mentalities I have to now fight with as a man. I'm gonna stop there.
So
Getting into it. I feel myself.
I feel it, man.
I'm,
And see, and that's the thing about this conversation. That's what I want, is to be able to have those expressive moments, and it's making me think about, I was looking at a scripture before we started, 1 Corinthians 16, 13. And part of that, it says, act like a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that's scripture, right?
Yeah.
But let's look at it in a broader sense, that when another man tells another man to act like a man, he's kind of telling you, you need to pull your bootstraps up, tighten up your belt.
That's right.
And to which degree there's value to that. At the same time, there's a fallacy coming back to some of the things you just mentioned, because in act like a man, so you have to tell me what a man is.
Come on,
I'm going to have to find out on my own.
That's right. And most likely I'm gonna find out from the worst model that I can probably find in my culture and probably find in my history, because you didn't point me to, even if you feel like you're not the man who you want me to portray, point me to what it looks like.
Yeah.
Show me what it should be. Tell me about your flaws so I can know not to follow. But when you give me nothing, when you give me a blank sheet of paper, right? I begin to scribble now my own picture and my own image. And the image that I have is based on what you've left me with to uncover the brokenness inside of me. When you say act like a man, like it hit me so hard, because you hear that so much in our culture. Stop crying. Act like a man. You better not cry.
Yep.
You better not cry. You better not have a tear. Come on here. You better not whimper. You better not. That's what I heard. So for me, being a man was predicated not on what I could do, but what I couldn't. I better not. So it's always predicated on what not to do. I never figured out what I could do so I was living a life of trying to act like a man based on not being what I thought a woman was. Never understand what a man really was.
Come on. And to this day, even in our age, we're still working on finding out what that really is. We have a better sense of identity today because, we've lived life, and we'll continue to live. We have those experiences to say, okay, I did that. I know that's not wrong, but now I have more information to make better decisions, more informed decisions, helping myself, therefore helping someone else just as well. And we have such a responsibility to make sure we know who we are so we can help someone else identify themselves just as well. And today, I don't care what culture you're in, how old you are, it is so detrimental to have identity. You've known this.
That's a big word. That's a big word.
They say, okay, we're in the job field. They say, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yes.
Well, I hope to be this. I'm looking to be, but I'm still trying to figure out where I am right now. Come on. Get solidified in that in order to tell you about 5 years from now. Because, just by tomorrow, something can change. No matter what I say today, my trajectory can change just like that. And when we're working towards this manhood ideal, it has been so skewed over the years.
Yeah.
And we normally see that from social media, television. Growing up, the men that I saw on television were, the ones that I wanted to be. You saw the James Evans, that's my boy. Good time. But I saw the John Waynes too, I also saw, God, what was the show? 8 is Enough or something like that. A Family Man. Those were the different ideals of being a man that I saw. And, the same thing I'm sure for the women as well. But that's where we normally got our identity for those that didn't have the father in home.
That's right. And even starting at the cartoons, right? Starting with the heroes. And you see these men, the Supermans, the Batmans, right? The Spider-Mans that appear to be larger than life and have this heroic lifestyle that you want to convey that the heroism inside of your lifestyle, not knowing that Superman is also Clark Kent. And Batman has to take off all of his tools and his belts eventually and become a businessman. Like we see the aspects of what to become, but how to get there. You know, that's something that I try to always keep in mind in terms of, to your point, understanding where you are. Present perspective determines the price of your future. I say that to say, I say that to say, how you see yourself today, how you see what you see, who you see today determines how much you value your tomorrow. And if you don't see a person that has a future that's worth fighting for today, then it's hard for you to put value on your tomorrow. And to your point, people are asking us 5, 10, 15 years from now, but how do you see yourself right now? Yeah. Do you see yourself with the ability to transform and to evolve and to develop? And you may not be where you want to be, but you still aren't who you used to be. Like, do you see the fullness of yourself, or are you just focusing on the flaws? You're focusing on the cracks, you're focusing on mistakes. You have to have that perspective of your present in order to dictate the price of your future, because your future will only give you back what you put in your present. If you don't invest nothing today, you can't expect to harvest tomorrow, right? You can't expect to reap it in the future. You got to invest it today. But it's hard for me to invest in what I deem as flawed if you don't show me that the heroes are also some of the same flawed people that I see in myself. Yeah. Those are the same heroes that I see in my tomorrow as well. You got to show me both sides of the spectrum.
So the investing on the healthy side, how can we as men invest in ourselves healthy? And what I mean is, now that, or I'll put it like this, at some point we have to see what's flawed in ourselves, what may be toxic, what may not be the best. Once those things are revealed, now how do we begin investing to turn the tables on that?
I believe it starts with communication. And when I say communication, for me, communication is more than just talking. It means to have a common unity about a language that you're trying to convey from the encoder to the decoder. I'm trying to get you to understand or comprehend in unity my commonality of what I'm expressing in these words. And communication doesn't just start when you're talking to another person. It starts when you're talking to yourself. And I said something yesterday, Father's Day message. I said, the loudest scream of a man is his silence. And I say that because what we need to be, as far as healthy, what you said, we need to learn how to talk. We need to learn how to talk to ourselves. We need to learn how to talk to other people around us that we can confide in. We need to learn how to get it out, healthy conversations. You know, in order for anything to be developed and matured, it first has to be planted. I can't plant something in a yard that's already filled with other things that's already grown. There has to be some uprooting. There has to be some tearing out. So let me get out some of these things so I can put in some other things. So it has to be communication to where I'm talking to you about what I'm feeling, and then watch this, it comes back to me. And that's the recycle that we need as men, to have other men to be able to say, hey man, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm expressing. You know, I'm being transparent, as James would say. I'm confessing my sins. Well, this is where I missed the mark. That's all sin means, to miss the mark. This is where I missed the mark. I missed it with my son. I missed it in my anger. I missed it in my temperament. And when I missed the mark to you, you expressed to me, hey, I missed the mark as well. But this is how we get back to, you know, in righteousness. Like having that dialogue with each other, trying to, you know, build each other up and not tear each other down, is vital. It's vital. I think that even in the church, we spend so much time talking about the things we can't do that we don't spend as nearly as much time talking about the things we can do, and the person we can become, and the positivities of our nature, especially in the African American community, that we miss a whole entire portion of what needs to be planted. We talk about uprooting, but after everything is uprooted, now I got a blanket field of nothing in it. And if you don't plant anything, weeds will always grow. Well, you don't put the work in and plant in what you need for the future.
Continue to clean. Yeah, you gotta clean that bed. Yeah,
you gotta clean that bed.
Come on,
you gotta clean that bed.
And you know that, what was this? It was some years ago. I remember cutting my yard. It was a pretty large yard, and I didn't have a riding lawnmower. I had a push mower, and I was cutting it, and weeds had grown. And there was this one particular weed. Now, mind you, I'm only about 5'7". This was about 3 foot high or something like that, right? So it was standing up from the other weed,
Right.
and I continued cutting, but I was pulling a lot of the weeds by hand. And that
Right.
one particular weed at that time, I couldn't pull by hand, man. I said,
That's
I
not
see
true.
you, but I'm gonna have to come back to you because I'm not strong enough.
Right.
And by the time I had already finished the yard or whatnot, I said, okay, now's the time to go back and go and pull that weed on out,
That's right.
because I had to
That's
get my
right.
mind together for it as well as my body.
That's right.
A lot of things that we
But you
see.
didn't.
Go ahead.
You didn't ignore. As I was just saying, you didn't ignore it. Though. You didn't.
No,
You didn't. You didn't cut it down and leave it there.
no, that joker had to go.
That's right. Right. I love
And
it.
I think as men, we really need to make sure we identify those weeds in our area. That,
Yeah.
as you were saying, get to that garden that we have. If we're trying to plant anything, you got to uproot a lot of stuff. You really do,
You do.
because
And you're having a vital conversation, Selman, right now about both sides of the spectrum, which is vital. Understanding what we need to go to get the crown, but also understanding where we came from the curse. Like we got to have both sides, both sides of the coin. And I love the conversation because what it does, it puts everything in its proper perspective to say that even though there is some there's some toxins there. There's also some healthy stuff there as well. And one thing I say, to especially my children, is when you're watching the news, always keep in mind that good news don't sell. That's why we read our Bible. Come on here. That's why on your TV, all you see is bad news. And the African American who shot who, who did what, and they're portraying this bad news. There is some healthy news in the African American community, people.
Yeah.
Come on here, somebody. We are helping people. We are giving. We are feeding people. We are doing things for the community. We are helping our daughters and our sons, and we are doing good things. We're not just shooting and robbing and stealing. No, we are doing some healthy things in our communities as well.
Well, in that you sound passionate about something right now, and I told you at the end we got to close out here in a minute. I want to leave this last section for you to talk about that one thing that really is on your heart right now. So what do you have, man?
Man, what's really plaguing me is building up not just a generation, but also a genre and this global, if I can, this global mentality of church, like building up the right environment to really impact generations to come, but also the people we are today. And what I mean by that, Selwyn, is what's plaguing me so hard is the fact that we've misconstrued how we view each other in the church and how we view each other in the body. And we even talking about this conversation of masculinity, we tend to always gravitate to people who we see as either fathers or men who we're lacking from, and we can't seem to understand that God is putting more than just certain people in our life to get things from, that we're a body, that everybody has something we need. Everybody has some part of the body that we can eat from. Just because I don't look like what you've envisioned as a father doesn't mean I can't help you as a man to get past this season in your life. And just because I don't look like somebody who you envisioned as a sister doesn't mean I can't pray for you and get you through this portion of your life. The body as a whole, really building up the body and setting it in a way that is not just formulated based off imaginations or thoughts or even traditions, but is set up the way that God orchestrated it to be, that the smallest part, the little person, regardless of who you are and where you came from, they have something to contribute to your life. You can learn something from the greatest of them, and you can learn something from the least of them. You can learn something from the person on the highest the platforms, and you can learn something from the person in the lowest places. It's not just about who looks the part and who looks great and who looks grand, but it's about how do we connect? How do we put this body together? How do we formulate and we mature enough to the point to where I'm not judging you based off your journey, your past journey, but I understand that God put us together because he's bringing joint and marrow and bone and structure, and he says you have something she needs and he has something you need. You can't do what he can do and she can't do what you can do, so don't tear them down but build them up, because everybody has something you need. So plaguing me is the passion for the body to be the model, the church, the true resemblance of God, who he called us to be, and not just your local church or your local body, the kingdom,
yeah,
the universal church,
that's
the
right.
kingdom body.
Mm-hmm.
Can we come together, man to man, me and you? No, we don't go to the same church. No, we may not have grew up in the same neighborhood. No, you know, we may not have some of the same cultural backgrounds, but we understand that you got something I need, I have something you need, and we're not here to tear each other down. We're here to build each other up. And whatever thing you're doing, I'm gonna support it. Whatever thing I'm doing, you're gonna support it, because God has enough for everybody.
Come on.
He has enough for everybody.
And you know, that one word right there, kingdom, is so big right now. It's not seasonal, it's not trendy, but it is the reality. It is the truth. And you know, I've been speaking to a couple of people about that, you know, and yourself included. You know, we recently talked about that, in that, you know, this is not to say, hey, I'm a Christian and that's it, you know, this is what I believe, but it's bigger than that. You know, Christ himself wasn't even saying, you know what, look, this is way bigger than me. So don't relegate what I'm doing to a particular section or belief per se, but you have to look at the kingdom, because it says, you know, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's kingdom talk. And we need to make sure that we're being examples of that kingdom that's in us, so that the kingdom truly can be here to any and everybody that we're speaking to. And, you know, even if we're not speaking, that we're walking the way we need to, because as you had said earlier on, you didn't realize that a lot of people had stopped to just listen on what you were saying. And that is so key, that as believers, as kingdom-minded individuals, men and women, that we're being that true testament of what Jesus Christ is trying to do here through us.
Absolutely.
Dude.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Hey, thank you so much for this moment, man. Thank you so much for letting me spend time with you on this platform to talk about these pressing, important items in our culture as men, African-American culture.
Man, this was great, dude. I know we are out of time for it, but you know, we could have continued on in this for sure.
Man, we can go for another few days. Give me some chicken wings. Listen, man, give me some chicken wings and some sweet tea. We can sit here for a while, and in this chair, we got this conversation. But I appreciate it, man, and I really, really applaud you. I applaud what you're doing, man. I thank you so much for thinking outside the box and letting God use you in the way that he's using you, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about, the body. Everybody has a gift. I can't do podcasts. I can't sit here with people and ask these questions like you do. I can answer them, but I can't do it every day. It's a grace for that. It's a grace for that. I'm praying.
Well, you know, I think, you know, I have to thank a guy, his name is Chris Howell. He's the one that actually spoke this about 2 years ago. Because I was looking to get into something, and he's like, hey, Selwyn, you ever thought about a podcast? I never thought about it. I've listened to him, seen him, whatnot, but it's like, no, I didn't think I could do this. I'm like, hold on, I love talking. Come on. Come on, man. Hey, before we get out of here, you have a men's conversation coming up. Give us the information on that.
It's more to come, but the proposed date is August. I think it's 26. We had to change it a couple of times. I push it back a little bit because of what's going on, but more information to come. This is what you can do. Kingdom Ekklesia. Kingdom Ekklesia at Facebook, Kingdom Ekklesia 18 at IG. You can follow us at Kingdom Ekklesia. Pastor Jason Johnson, you can follow me. You will get this information about this conversation that's happening, that will be had with a men of so many different platforms, not just Christian men or believing men. I'm talking about men from all the businessmen. I'm bringing maintenance men. I'm bringing all kind of men just to have a conversation that needs to happen. So pray for me about the date, because I did have to push it back. Some things have been going on. Coming out of this pandemic has been a little challenging in this country, but it's coming. More to come here. I definitely make sure you know the information. And if you guys follow Selman, I'm gonna make sure he's on that platform as well. I'm gonna do what I got to do to get him there, guys. I'm pulling them with me.
Oh, come on, man. Thank you for the invite. I would love to be a part of that, man.
Thank you, sir.
Right,
Thank you.
Good deal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the conversation voice of Pastor Jason Johnson at Kingdom Ekklesia. You can find them online also at kingdomekklesia.com. That's the website for their church. And Kingdom Dance Ministries for
Kingdom Images Dance.
Images Dance.
Yes,
For
sir.
Lady K, his wife, and she's been doing some great things. He's getting ready to do some more great things, as he had mentioned with this conversation coming up for men. We will be praying about the day, so that is solidified. So these men could come out and talk and express, have fun, laugh, and just get real. And that's what we're needing. So, hey guys, once I get more information, Pastor Jason will be passing that out to you guys, and I'll put his information on here just as well. All right. Once again, this was Mandated, and see you again.
See you guys.
All right, brother.
I mean, that was good, man.
Yes, it
That was
was.
good.
Come on,
That
man.
was good, man.